Today I'm going to show you how I created this button, which will automatically respond to a person's first chat in the stream for that specific stream. As an example, if I put hello into chat, my bot welcomes by saying hi me. If I then say something else, you can see that it doesn't respond with it again. I'll now pass you over to past me to show you how I created this button. Thanks, future me. As you said, today we're creating a button to automatically respond to a user's first message in the chat for that stream. To do that, first we need to go into the deck and we need to create a button, which you can do by either double clicking or right click create button. Before we actually create any commands, first we need to initialize some variables. So right click, edit initialize variables. This brings up this window where you can create variables before the button's even started. The first thing we're going to create is an array, which is just a list that we'll use to store people's usernames to show that they have chatted already in this stream. The format to initialize variables is the first thing is the variable's name in double quotes, the colon, and then what you want the variable to be. If you want the variable to be a string of text, you'd put it in quote marks like this. If you want it to be a number, you don't need the quote marks. If you put a number in quote marks, it won't recognize it as a number, it will recognize it as a string of text. For an array, we use square brackets, and I'll show you what we use for an object in a minute. But like I said, we need to name this. We need to give an array a name. So we're going to use chat_list. Because we're adding more than one, we need to put a comma at the end. The second variable that we need is the responses object. So an object is like an array in that it's a list, but it's a list of paired values. So for this, we're pairing a person's username with the message that we want to send. So first we'll put the variable name, which we'll call responses, put that in quote marks, colon, and then an object is defined by curly brackets. Inside the object, we want to add variables to start it with. The first variable we're going to do is the first person's username, which I'll put my name, will be another colon, and then the chat message that we want to say. So I'm going to say, hi me. We're going to add a few more. I've already got them copied. So we're going to put a comma, new line, and we're going to paste them in. One thing I forgot to add is some commas at the end. So we'll put commas in there, and there. So we've got the chat list array, we've got the responses object, and all of that is inside curly brackets for the code. This is one way of storing the responses inside the button for us to be able to use. There is another way of storing them outside the button, and I will show you that later. You can make sure the code works by pressing test JSON. It says all good. Now that the code is all good, we can reinitialize the button's variables, which will actually add the variables to the button. If I don't click that and I just click save, go into the button, the variable viewer, search 150 and look inside it, you can see that there are no variables added. If I go back into initialize variables window, click the reinitialize button's variables, and then click save, then go back and look at the variable viewer, 150. Inside it, you can see the chat list array has been created. It's currently empty. And the responses object has been created with Christina's, Valina's, Lioran's, Mananax's, and my messages. The next thing that we need to do is add some triggers. So what we want to make this button activate. And for that, it's a Twitch chat. So we'll go edit triggers, click add, and then a Twitch chat message. This asterisk means a wildcard. That means anything. It doesn't have to be a single character. It can be multiple characters, multiple words, even multiple sentences. We don't want it to be case sensitive. We don't want it to be allow empty wildcard. And we don't need to limit it to who triggers it. So this is all good. Click save. And you can see that we've got a trigger, persistent variables, and we've got initialized variables by these three symbols here. Inside it, we'll create our first command. And that is, we want to pull the username of the person who triggered the button. Add trigger pull data. So we want to pull the value username. If you notice, there is this first time option, and that refers not to the first time somebody chats that stream, but the first time they chat in the channel ever. So if they've never chatted in the channel before and they've chat, it will pop up with that highlight message. I'll throw it up on screen now so you can see. That will only ever happen once per user per channel. We want it to happen once per user per stream. Twitch doesn't have that functionality built in, so this is why we have to create this button. So like I said, we want to pull their username. We want to store that in a variable called chatter. Next, we want to look inside that list of people, the chat list, and we want to see if that person is in there already. If they are, it means they've already chatted in this stream before, which means we don't want to then send the welcome message again. So we need to do an array find value. The array name was chat_list. The find value is chatter. That's a variable. The array find value will look inside chat list for the username in the chatter variable. If it finds it, it will return the number of the index or the position of that username inside the array. The first index is 0, second index is 1, next is 2, so on and so forth. If it does not find the username in that list, it will return -1. We need to store that value in a variable so we can then refer back to it later. We'll call it check. So this is checking to see if the person has spoken before. If they have spoken before, the value will be 0 or higher, and we want to just exit the button. There is an exit statement, and we want to exit if the value of check is either not equal to -1, or you can set it to be greater than or equal to 0. Either works. For me, I tend to put not equal to -1. If the username was found in the chat list array, then check will be a value that is not equal to -1, which means the button will just stop. If it was not found in the chat list, then it will equal -1, and we can continue on with the next line, which for us is to add the username to the array. So for that, we want an array insert. The array name is chat_list. The value is the variable chatter. The position is where you want to add it in the array. I personally just leave it at top, which means it will add it as the last name in the array. You could put it at 0, which means it will add it to the first one, and then all the names move over by 1. So what was in the 0th position will move to the first position. What was in the first position will move to the second position. Personally, I'll just leave it at top. Next, we want to look inside the responses object to see if the person has a predefined response. And if they do, we load it. So to do that, we do get object variable. The object's name was responses. The key is the chatter variable. So because it's a variable in a white box, we need to wrap the variable name. We'll save the variable as reply, as in this is our reply to their first message. If there is not a reply already inside the object, then it will return undefined. At this point, we can go in two different ways. We can either exit the button if the value is undefined. So if they don't have a response, we just exit. The other thing we could do is have a default response. So some people will get personalized responses. Other people will just get a standard welcome message. I'll show you the standard welcome message later when I also show off the other way of storing the responses. To just exit if there is no response, we'll add just another exit statement. We want to exit if reply is undefined. Otherwise, we want to send a Twitch chat message with the reply. We'll put the reply in the message. It's a variable, so we need to wrap it. And the channel name we want is Wolby. I'll now save the button, save the deck, and move over to the Twitch chat. If I now say hello in the chat and send it, you can see that my bot has said hi me. If I then put another message in, you can see that it has not responded again because my name was added to the chat list array. And we can see that by doing the chat list, and it's got my name in it. As I said earlier, there is a second way of storing the responses without putting them inside that object, which you then initialize. And the way to do that is what's called an ini file, INI. To do that, you need to create it inside text editor. I tend to use Notepad, and I'll bring that up now. The formatting for an ini file is as follows. First, we have the section, which needs to be put inside square brackets. Then we have the key equals the value. For this, we'll call the section responses. The key will be people's usernames. So for me, that would be Colby. And then the value is the message that we want to send in quote marks. So, hi, me. Then I can just paste in the other ones that I already had copied. So for Leon, Christina, Mananax, and Falanir, you then want to save it, and you want to make sure you save it as a .ini file inside your LioranBoard folder, just in the main folder where the .exe file is. I've called it replies.ini. Once you've saved it, you no longer need to have Notepad open, so I'm going to hide it. Back inside LioranBoard, we'll go into our button. Because we're loading the responses from a file instead of an object, these two commands can be deleted. And instead we need to do a file key exists. The file name was replies, the section was responses, and the key is the variable chatter. If this command finds the username's key inside the responses section of the file, it will return a 1. If it does not, it will return a 0. As such, we need to store that 1 or 0 inside a variable. So we'll call this check2. Here we could again do that exit if check2 is equal to 0, because it means they don't have one. I'll show you that other method I talked about. For that, we'll use a regular if statement. If check2 is equal to 1, it means it found that key. So we then need to load the value of it. So that is file load text. Again, the file name is replies, the section is responses, and the key is chatter, the variable. We'll save the response as reply. If it does not find the person's username inside the responses section, it means they do not have a personalized one, so we will create a standard welcome response. So for that, we'll do in the else section a set local variable. The variable name will be reply, and the value will be welcome to my stream in quote marks because it's text. Finally, the last thing we do is the Twitch chat message reply in our channel. Click save again, and we can go back inside the variable viewer, 150. You can see that I already deleted my name from the chat list array. I can show you that it will go off again. Hello. It says hi me, and you can see that check2 was true, and it added my name to the chat list. And that's it. That's how you create automatic welcome message button. Just go through it one more time. We pulled the chatter name. We look inside chat list for the chatter. If we find it, it will exit. If we don't find it, we add the name to the chat list. In this section, we're looking to see if the response exists inside the replies.ini file. If it does exist, we load that text. If it doesn't exist, we'll set a standard response, and then we'll put that response into chat. Thank you very much for joining me, and I'll see you in the next video.